Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 2 of our webinar, Don't Panic, Plan, Practical Tips and Tactics for Responding to the Coronavirus and Keeping Your Business on Course. My name is Emily Lindley. I am Marketing Manager at the Grow Group, a green industry coaching and consulting firm based in Cincinnati, Ohio. Marty, who will be speaking next, is President and CEO of both the Grow Group and Grunder Landscaping Company in Dayton, Ohio. GLC has been in business for 36 years and normally has about 50 team members. It is the leading landscaping company in their market. Following Marty, you'll hear from Vince Torchia, Grow Group Vice President, and Jim Cali, one of our executive coaches. They'll share their insights into the current situation as well. As we go through the webinar today, please send any questions you have by clicking the Q&A button in your toolbar. It should be at the bottom of your screen. I'll come back on at the end to ask Marty your questions, and we'll get answers from the team. We will be sharing the presentation and a recording of this webinar after it ends. Keep in mind that this webinar is for general information purposes only. We are simply sharing what GLC and other companies are doing, but for legal advice, please consult an attorney. To share the latest developments, I'll pass it over to Marty.
Thank you, Emily. Hey, excited. We have several hundred landscape professionals joining us from all over the United States and Canada, and it is an honor for us to be with you and share with you what not only our mothership, Grunder Landscaping Company, is doing, but what the countless landscaping companies that our team at the Grow Group works with. We think we have a very insightful 45 minutes or so to share with you. Due in large part to the National Association of Landscape Professionals Advocacy, specifically Mr. Andrew Bray there, the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, acronym CISA, added landscapers to the critical work list on Saturday, March the 28th. What that means, ladies and gentlemen, is the federal government is now recognizing as essential landscapers who provide services necessary to maintaining safety, sanitation, and essential operation. This is great news, folks. This means you have a legal right to be on properties doing, albeit a limited amount of services right now in areas that are experiencing this, but it is essential. According to NALP, some states still may come with guidance in opposition to this. Michigan is especially tough, but most of us now have federal approval to do maintenance work. Grunder Landscaping Company sent our maintenance crews out back this morning, which it was a glorious sight to have some folks out doing things, making some money again. Our people were excited to be back, and we're excited to be back out on properties, trying to beautify them and getting them ready for the spring rush here. This new federal designation is not permission to revert to operating as usual. This virus is serious, folks, and it doesn't discriminate. If you've been watching the news, which I would suggest you not watch it all day long, I don't think that's good for your health. But if you're watching the news, it doesn't discriminate. It's gotten all walks of life and all ages. I noticed somebody who I like, I'm a country music fan, Joe Diffie, succumbed to the coronavirus at age 61. There's been young people get it, so on and so forth. So we all have to do our part to keep our teams, our clients, and our community safe, and to protect the reputation of your business. You're going to be around here in a couple years. The coronavirus will hopefully have a vaccine, and it won't have the impact that it's having on us now. So since we are going to be working and we're dealing with this, we wanted to share with you what Grunder Landscaping Company is doing, what our safety protocols are. I would tell you that you need to closely monitor and follow federal, state, and local guidelines. This is what we're doing at Grunder, and this is what countless companies that we've been talking to and listening to is doing as well. We are taking our team members' temperatures when they arrive in the morning. Normally, you would not be able to do that. That would be a HIPAA violation, but in the state of Ohio, the governor has requested that. It's mandated that you take the temperatures and you log them in, and you're to send home anyone with a temperature of 100.4 or greater. We continue to suspend the use of water coolers and ice machines at Grunder. I know I've seen some companies using the water coolers for non-potable water, and you're using it to wash hands. We've chosen not to do that. If you've chosen to do that, that's okay. We've got hand sanitizer that we're using. We're prohibiting on-site visitors to the landscaping company. There's only a couple of us in the building Everyone else is working remotely. We're scheduling deliveries through Site 1 and designated drop-off site away, and a designated drop-off site away from people. So we're still doing business as usual with Site 1. They've been bringing us materials that we need, such as our Roundups and herbicides and other PPE equipment that we get from Site 1. We're still doing all that. We're wiping down trucks with Clorox wipes. We're wiping down tablets and surfaces sprayed with Lysol and everything else. I mean, a germ's going to have a hard time living on anything we're touching. We're doing it to the nth degree. And then we have contracted with a local cleaning company. It's called Made Right. It's a company we actually have done some speaking and training for in the Grow Group. Their personnel are coming in Monday, Wednesday, Friday with a mister, and they are using a hospital-grade disinfectant called EnviroMist, and they're hitting all of our offices with that. Other service issues that we're following through, safety protocols, performing frequent and thorough hand washing, which is something you should be doing whether the coronavirus is present or not. We're practicing social distancing. We're asking people to be 6 feet away, and if you can't figure out 6 feet, then we're going to tell you to go 8 feet, 10 feet, whatever it is, stay away. We're assigning one person per truck, and we're allowing personal vehicles to follow trucks. We otherwise would not do that. We are doing that to keep one vehicle per truck, and we're reimbursing team members for mileage. And we continue to suspend the use of leave-behinds or anything paper, door hangers, and we're communicating to clients via email instead. There's good things that are coming from this. We're sharpening up our use of electronic equipment. If you look there on the right side of the screen, one of our sponsors of our annual Grow event is Greenius, which is a great online training program. We used their training, the session, to go over with it. I'd recommend that you look them up. They've got some good stuff that can help you by standardizing the COVID-19 dilemma here. There's a safety tailgate talk that we're going over every morning, and then everyone that's part of that, we're signing that off and we're documenting it. We're communicating with our team to make up for lost time about the latest plans and the ongoing need to adhere to enhanced safety protocols. Amber, our HR manager, is talking to all of our people. We're texting them. I'm going to drop a text to all of our people that are still off. I'm checking in with the people that are working. I'm doing everything I can. We think a good mindset to be in here is over-communicate. We're sending emails to all our clients explaining why and how we will be operating. We suggest that you do the same thing. And we prepare the team to be able to explain, if asked, why we're now operating. If you look there on the right side of the screen, there is a letter that's talking about our protocol and how we're handling things to our clients. We have that as an email that we sent them, and then our people are also carrying this in a laminated form in their trucks. There's a laminated copy of the CISA order in all trucks. If you don't have this, you're going to get that with a follow-up email on this webinar. That is the official document that came from the Director of Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. That's who gives us the right to be called essential. It's an official governmental document, something that you should carry as well. And then, like I said, carry that laminated copy. You can take that letter that we give you, you can put your own letterhead on it, and you can put that in there. Let's say the health department comes to you and it's a new inspector, or the police comes out and asks what you're doing. This is stuff just to have. And also, I think it's smart for your people to know that, you know, there's governing bodies here telling us as long as we operate safe, it's okay to work. And the key word there is safe. You have got to operate safely so you don't spoil this for everyone else. The governor of Ohio has been chastising people who are congregating in parks. I know I drove back to our office yesterday and saw 20 kids out playing basketball on a basketball court that the company 2 doors down from us had. And then when I went to go home, they were dispersed. I'm quite sure with a cell phone, people called to complain about them. I mean, we all have to do our part. I am under the opinion that we could do every single thing we do at Grunder safely. It's just the concern that I think the general public has for everyone else doing it safely. You've got to do your part and be a professional. Making up for lost track, how we're trying to get back on track. We normally visit 180 properties every 2 weeks in our landscaping department. So we've beefed up the size of the crew. Instead of them being 2 or 3, they're 4 to 6. So there may be 4 Grunder trucks in front of a house. It's a little bit crazy, but that's what we're doing. and we're establishing a baseline on these properties. We have roses to cut back, grasses to cut back, spirea, other semi-evergreen perennials, things we have to do. We're trying to get back on a baseline so that we can schedule this and get things in a routine when things settle down. We continue to recruit. There are all the restaurants around us are only, the ones that are open are only doing takeout. So there's a lot of people on the streets looking for work. We're recruiting. We continue to put a message out there. We continue to post pretty pictures on our social media platforms. We don't think it's appropriate to be doing any call to action type sales, but we do think it's okay to have a narrative like, at Grunder Landscaping Company, we know you're all struggling right now, staying inside. Here's a couple pictures to provide some inspiration and a smile. If you want to talk about any of these projects, we're happy to talk right now. Otherwise, be safe. What I would encourage you to do is to know and read your market and respond accordingly. Nothing worse than trying to say there's a sale on patios or something when people are trying to worry about getting toilet paper. I think that the best way to look at this is short term, we hope. And so we hope for the best and plan for the worst. And we look at things that way. I'm going to turn it over to Vince Torchia, who is our vice president at the Grow Group. Vince just celebrated his 10th year with the Grow Group. He joined us as an intern from the University of Dayton over 10 years ago. Vince is in school at night to get his Juris Doctorate and become an attorney. He works with many of our clients in coaching. He is a super bright young man. I'm proud to have him as my partner. Vince, take it away, brother.
You got it. Thanks, Marty. So the latest legislation, again, we're going to go through this. And just as a reminder, as Emily put at the beginning of this, we're sharing this information for general information purposes only. So as always, for legal and financial advice, please consult your own attorney and accountant. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the Families First Coronavirus Relief Act, the FFCRA. So this goes into effect tomorrow, April 1st, for all companies with up to 500 employees. What this act does is it provides for emergency paid sick and family leave. So employees are eligible for this up to 2 weeks of emergency paid sick leave and up to an additional 12 weeks of family and medical leave. 10 of those 12 weeks are paid. So you're only eligible for this as an employee if you are unable to work or telework because you are, one, subject to a quarantine on a federal or state level, you are experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 and seeking a medical diagnosis, you're caring for a family member who is quarantined, and you're caring for a child whose school or daycare provider is closed or unavailable due to COVID-19. Those are the reasons why you may be allowed as an employee to be eligible for this Relief Act. So a caveat that has been entered into this, although this is for companies with up to 500 employees, if you're a small business with fewer than 50 employees, you might qualify for an exemption on this from the requirement to provide leave due to school closings or childcare unavailability if doing so would jeopardize the viability of your business. So it's very easy to see and tie those two together. And if you have team members that cannot work with you because they are at home, because their children cannot be in daycare or school, that certainly to me would jeopardize the viability of your business. So as long as they don't hit any of those other criterias and team members are home simply because their children have to be watched or cared for during the day because they're not in school or labor, and they're under 50 employees, and you are under 50 employees as a company, you will have relief from that act. And again, there's more information on this on the DOL's website, so please feel free to go through that as well. So that was the FFCRA from an employee side. From a business side, what's great news is employers are able to receive 100% reimbursement for paid leave pursuant to the act. So basically how it's operating right now, and again, this is all information that's current and flowing, and we're still wrestling with it ourselves, employers will be reimbursed at the end of the calendar quarter as part of this act, or some could receive advanced payroll tax credits subject to limitations, but the IRS will issue forms and instructions for employers that choose this option. So again, this is new, this is fluid, we're learning more about this, but employers should be covered up to about 100% for reimbursement for all paid leave during this as a result of this act. So that's the FFCRA. Then moving into the stimulus package that many of you have heard, seen, read about, seen on the news that was signed in over the weekend, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Securities Act, the CARES Act. So again, what this means for our teams and for our people is this package will provide direct payments of $1,200 to adults and $500 to every qualifying child age 16 or under. These payments are phased out for upper income brackets, starting with anyone making over $75,000 a year. So if you make over $75,000 a year and under $100,000, you will still be eligible, but we believe there's a reduction of about $5 for every $100 over $75,000 that you make will be reduced from your check as an adult. People do not need to apply for this money. If the IRS already has your bank account information, they will transfer the money via direct deposit based on the most recent income tax figures it already has. So if you have team members asking you about this, or if you're curious about this, if you filed a tax return in 2018, then you will automatically be entered into the pool for this, even if you haven't filed your 2019 one yet. The only caveat, though, is if you have filed your 2019 tax return, it looks like you will be paid quicker than those that have filed only their 2018 and not their 2019 one. So again, encourage your team members and encourage people to make sure their tax returns have been filled out for the previous 2 years so they can take advantage of this act on an individual basis. This act also provides for some expanded unemployment benefits. So again, that's on the people side. Whether you work, in a business or any industry, you're eligible for that. For our businesses and for the people on this call, there's a great thing coming through a grant basically called the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP. Now this, through the CARES Act, allows for businesses with up to 500 workers in a single location to apply through their qualifying bank for a loan backed by the SBA, Small Business Administration. So the loans are eligible for forgiveness of up to 8 weeks of payroll based on employee retention and salary levels, and at least 6 months of deferral on any loans that you currently have through the SBA. Now, your maximum loan is equal to 2.5 times your average monthly payroll during the time period of February 15th through June 30th of 2019. So basically what you're eligible for here is a grant based on your average monthly payroll from around this time period last year. And so again, what that payroll means is all the burden that goes along with payroll as well. So payroll taxes, health insurance, again, all of those are wrapped into this. And also you could be qualified for rent and utility payments as well. So these loans are capped at $10 million and they cover wages up to $100,000 a year. So what you'll want to do to be a part of this PPP, this program, is to get with your local bank, your accountant. They're going to have to do some discovery to figure out what amounts you have from the time period last year as designated here based on your monthly payroll. And then we have heard that banks will start this process Friday of this week. So again, this is moving quickly. Now, we don't know exactly what it's going to look like. Again, this is all new. We're not sure exactly how the banks will administer this on a local level. But again, this is happening quickly. So the best thing you can do is get with your bank, get with your accountant, start to go through the discovery process of getting this information set. So when these portals open up, you can take advantage of this program. Marty, if you could advance the slide for me. So the PPP program is one. There's also a small business debt relief program. So this is designed to provide immediate relief to small businesses with non-disaster SBA loans. The SBA will cover all loan payments on these, including principal, interest, and fees for up to 6 months. You have to meet certain business size standards. You have to be able to repay, and you have to have a sound business purpose. So again, now this is another option for you. The PPP seems to make sense for most companies, but again, get with your banker, get with your accountant, ask them if this small business debt relief program would apply to you in your current situation as well. And finally, the economic injury disaster loans and emergency economic injury grants. These are a lower interest loan of up to $2 million to pay for certain expenses that could have been met had this disaster not occurred. So again, this is an economic disaster loan program that if this would have never happened, right? If we would have never had to go through this situation, here's where our business would be. This loan is to cover really what that gap is. So you can get an emergency advance of up to $10,000 within 3 days of applying for this loan through the SBA. The advance does not need to be repaid. But for this program, personal guarantees for owners of businesses that own more than 20% may have to be made. That is not the case with the PPP. There are no personal guarantees. But with this, there are personal guarantees that have to be made, again, with owners that own over 20% of the business applying.
And Vince, if I could just add, we don't see a reason why anyone wouldn't want to apply for this at this point. The other one that they have, maybe, but and then can't stress enough what Vince said about not every bank is qualified to do this loan. So you gotta make sure that before you go in this.
Yeah, thanks, Marty. There's no reason not to go through this process. You'll learn something by going through it alone. But again, get with your banker, get with your accountant, start to go through this process. Don't say woulda, shoulda, coulda. And again, start this program. And again, the major difference between the the PPP within the CARES Act and this economic disaster loan is that really there's personal guarantees that have to be made on the disaster loan. There's no credit available. There is credit available through the PPP, and there are no personal guarantees. Marty, if you want to go to the next slide, thank you. So again, talk to your bank, talk to your trusted financial advisor. Legislation is new. Institutions are still figuring out the details. One good thing that has been written into this is that, banks, institutions, accountants, lawyers, there is a maximum fee that they can charge you to put you through this process. So again, Marty, I think last we heard from our accountant in our bank was $2,500. So you will not be gouged on a time and materials basis for going through this process to see what you would qualify for. So again, that is a good thing, but make sure you're empowered with that information when you talk to your accountant, your lawyer, your banker, so that you understand that, again, you're going to have to pay something to go through this process, but that fee to get into this program will be capped. And again, watch out for scams. This is going to open up a lot of people that want to take advantage of people that maybe aren't totally in the know with how these systems work. So use your trusted advisors, be smart, be safe. But again, look into these programs on a local level with your locally banked or your locally qualifying SBA bank.
Thank you, Vince. And it's a max 2,500 there, which was a good thing they did. So consultants can't think they found something and charge you 20 grand to do this, or Lord knows what else. There will be scams out there. We got a email that said if we didn't send them $1,000, they were going to infect all of us with the coronavirus. So, you just never know. People are vulnerable right now. They're on pins and needles with some of this, so be careful. Ladies and gentlemen, no one can predict the future with any certainty. Some economists and green industry leaders think this situation is temporary and will have no or little lasting impact on the economy. Others are less sure. We don't know what's going to happen for sure, but I can assure you something that I learned a long time ago from a business mentor of mine: you need to plan. All planning is good. We've told you there's 4 pillars for a successful business, and those are platform, people, processes, and profits. Those are the 4 areas that the Grow Group work with the owners and leadership teams on at landscaping companies to help make them better. We found it's become really clear to us during this challenging situation that there is a 5th pillar that we need to give consideration to, and that pillar is positivity. And I cannot stress this enough. If there's only one thing that you took away from this entire webinar, I hope it's this. Your mindset is going to determine what happens here. Your attitude determines your altitude. Hope is not a strategy, ladies and gentlemen, but the companies that endure through adversity and thrive over the long term stay positive. It is a sense of hope that will move us forward, folks. You have to rally here. You are being watched. No one has faced this before. So it's critical that you be positive as a leader. So what could you do? Well, we have a couple suggestions for you to help keep you positive. Number 1, find and share 2 good things every day with somebody important in your life. I'm doing this with several clients of ours in the Grow Group. It's quick, it's to the point, it's been fun, and it's forced me to look past my day and to say what good happened. For example, most of my comments that I've had, one of them has been the wonderful meals that my wife has cooked that we've all joined together. It's been like a blast from the past. My adult children, 2 of them are home from college. One is home from her job in Connecticut. And we have had a lot of fun talking and doing different things, doing puzzles, watching movies. So there's been plenty of positive. Exercise. It's not only your mind that needs a workout, it's your body as well. Take a walk, meditate, breathe, think. Where do you want to be, say, come July 4th, if that's a goal? What do you need to do between now and then to get there? Start visualizing the future. Plan a vacation with your family. Do something to take your mind off this. We will get through this, folks. Where do you want to be? Who do you want to be 5 years from now? Again, you're being watched. This is an opportunity for you to rise above and to win. How do you want to be perceived as handling this crisis? As a loser or a winner? Give that some thought. Now I'd like to bring on one of our awesome executive coaches, Jim Cali. Jim is a graduate of SMU's MBA program. He is a super bright guy that makes a lot of our clients' businesses better. And I've learned so much from being around Jim. Why don't you share with us your little touch bases that you've had in the last week and what you've learned from some of our clients that you can share and help everyone else. Jim?
Thanks, Marty. I talked last week on this phone call about all the little things that people were doing specifically in our peer groups to make their teams better. And I will tell you last week, what we learned was everybody's putting all those plans in actions, whether it was looking at their future pictures, looking at putting a strategy together for the next 10 years. There's a lot of planning time going on. People do have more times in their office. The best story of the week was that a client of ours in Auburn, Alabama, was trying to figure out, should they continue to work, should they not? And what they did is they got together with 5 other leading landscapers in the Auburn, Alabama area. And what they've chosen to do is to contact the hospital and get the names and addresses of healthcare workers that are working long shifts. And amongst them, they're going to start cutting the lawns of those healthcare providers in the Auburn area. So if you could consider doing something like that in your own local markets or figure out how you can make a difference, I would challenge you to be just like this team in Auburn, Alabama to make a big difference. Besides the people working on their strategies for right now, people are continuing to recruit. Marty, you mentioned earlier that you're hiring for May 1st and June 1st. Absolutely. Hire for May 1st, June 1st, and for that matter, July 1st. And what I mean by that is things change, you can move it up. If things change, you can move it back. You're in the driver's seat, but don't let qualified, great candidates, people that want to work on your team, join your team now. Let's go ahead and have those Zoom interviews. Put plans and actions so that you'll come out the other side of this with a team ready to move and shake and make things happen. I joked yesterday on a call that we did that the best part about all this is that my 15-year-old daughter's learning to drive and there's nobody on the streets. So, yeah, I'm driving every day and getting her 30 hours in really quick and getting her on an interstate with nobody in it. And then last but not least, a win from last night. A client, Denver, Colorado, once again during this period, $150,000 job they've been working for, sold via video and got their deposit for $37,500. I mean, that's about as good as it gets. Large jobs are still selling. Don't take your eye off the ball. Keep driving. Stay the status and lead through this process. No reason to change any of your approaches until told to do otherwise.
Thank you, Jim. Fantastic stuff. Emily, some questions?
Yes. Our first question, this is from a team member. He's working for a company that's not providing guidelines on social distancing, safe working procedures, or other things, and he feels they're doing work that's not essential. He's tried to implement and inform his coworkers where and when he can, but he's been told from senior office staff that the boss doesn't follow the rules, never has, and never will. He feels like he has an ethical and moral responsibility, but his hands are tied. Is there anything he can do for his coworkers without risking his position?
That is a very tough question. I am very sorry that you're in that predicament. To me, this is a matter of personal safety, and I would speak up. I would go to the owner and tell them they got to change. You can't do that. And in this environment, this sounds terrible, but somebody's going to love to have a caring employee like you on their staff. I don't know what else to say. This thing is serious. I believe we can do any job we do, a patio, a fire pit, plant trees, lay sod. I think we could do it safely, and guys like that are going to ruin it for all of us. Jim, I don't know if you have a perspective on that, or Vince as well.
Yeah, the only thing I might do it via in writing or via email, because people tend to get defensive when put on the spot with things like that, and give them an opportunity to think about what you're saying. So build your case for what you're asking for, and then give it to them in writing so that the right response can come back to you as opposed to a defensive response.
So maybe you could say something like, I'd like to talk to you about our safety protocols, or something like that.
Certainly that, or based on guidelines and what we've seen, this is where I feel we should be operating. I'd like your opinion.
Yeah, there you go. Vince, anything you want to add?
No, I think that, and we've learned this from companies that we work with, that safety is number one. There's no org chart when it comes to safety. So you should be able to leap any position there if someone's operating unsafely, and go to anyone in the company to have a conversation, or as Jim said, have a notice about it in writing that we can talk about. So nothing else to add other than that.
Thank you.
Okay, next question is from Nadia. In regards to the CARES Act, does subject to quarantine include shelter-in-place orders from the state that cause employees to not be able to work? Is there any impact on being deemed essential in that legislation?
That's a great question, Nadia. From the language written on the DOL, it's your quarantine subject to federal or state jurisdiction, basically. So to us, that's very gray language. We're not sure if a shelter in place by the state is the exact same thing as a quarantine. I know that it sounds like whether you're an essential or non-essential business does not seem to matter in this fact right now, is the way that we read it. But again, that's a very good question. It seems to be a gray area right now. That's about all I feel comfortable answering on.
And I'll only add one little piece to that, is that in the state of Texas where I am, shelter in place versus quarantine are two different things. Quarantine means that the state has quarantined you and they are checking on you to make sure that you are staying in your home for X number of days. So it is two different pieces. In Texas, if you arrive from the states of Louisiana, Connecticut, New Jersey, New York, California, Washington, or the metropolitan areas, I think of Atlanta, Boston, there's a few others. You sign paperwork when you get off an airplane or on the border when you see state police that says you will quarantine yourself in-house for 14 days, and state troopers do follow up to make sure you're there.
Emily, other questions?
Yep, this one is from Alexander. Should we assume that new landscape installation is not considered essential and should be put on hold?
In Ohio, that's what's been handed to us. It seems as though state by state is a little bit different. I've spoken to some contractors this morning in Florida, and they're great guns a-blazing. So, I'm not here to judge. I know in Ohio, there's a lot of social pressure. Every state's got seemingly a little different spin to it. I don't think you can assume anything. I think this is a time to talk to your local lawmakers and see where it is. And again, no matter what you're doing, you've got to be practicing those safety protocols. Jim or Vince, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'll just say, Marty, I agree. It seems to be a state-by-state thing right now. We have clients all over the country that are doing construction work and are doing work outside, and people are happy to have them doing it. And then in other states like Ohio and Michigan, it's pretty much on lockdown. So again, it's a state-by-state thing, but we did get the go-ahead from NALP at least over the weekend to have in our back pocket, and many states are following that order. So again, the biggest thing is just being able to educate your team and your clients on, if we're doing this work and we get asked why, to have the information, as Grunder shared, laminated and ready to go about why we're doing this work and why we've been deemed essential to be able to do this work.
I'll add to that. I mean, use the order, just like you described, Vince, and stay the course. Trust me, local officials will tell you otherwise if they don't agree with that order. And at such time, if you're worried because of the social implications of something you may have been stopped on because of the local authorities, address it on social media. In the meantime, I wouldn't live in fear. I'd move forward based on the orders that are in place. And trust me, you will get shut down if it needs to be shut down, and you can deal with it at that point and be prepared to deal with it at that point should that happen.
Another question, Emily?
Sure. This one is from Jake. What documentation do we need to keep and provide to be reimbursed for an employee's wages if they qualify for CARES Act leave? Do we need to ask for doctor's notes?
I honestly don't know the answer to that question. Vince, do you?
Now, I don't know what documentation is required, but we can certainly see if we can find that out and include it in the wrap up. It's a great question.
Okay.
That is a good question.
Okay, and then related to that, can owners of companies qualify for the unemployment benefits as well as their employees?
I'm not sure of that one either, Vince.
I actually have addressed this today with one of our clients, and it has to do with whether you're a W-2 employee of the company or not. If you're a W-2 employee of the company, I believe the answer is yes. If you're just a distribution and you just pay taxes via your normal federal income taxes that you filed, you are not. But that's what we're working on in North Carolina at the present moment.
So that would probably be a question for your accountant, and most people should have some salary. Anyway, I don't want to get into too much advice there, but yeah, I would talk to your accountant.
Okay, this one is from George. If they have so far only been minorly impacted by the coronavirus, should they go ahead and apply for one of the small business loans available just in case they need it later?
Vince?
Absolutely, you should go through the process and see what your options are for this. Now, again, this is changing every day. Yesterday, we read it as there's no provisions made for future relief beyond the spring, which would really mean June. So you cannot, apply for loans assuming that you're going to get recovery right now, in August or September. Really, it's been limited to June, which they term as late spring. But absolutely still go through the process. Even if you think, I haven't totally been affected by this, but I want to see if I'm eligible for anything. As I mentioned before, go through the process. You'll learn something in doing it. And again, it may open up other conversations with your banker or accountant that you might have needed to have anyways. So absolutely go through this.
I agree, Vince. I don't see, Jim, I can't think of a reason why you wouldn't want to go through this.
I agree 100%, although I said earlier to somebody, we have to stay the course and run the business. And if you're deferring from working on projects and things that are going to take you past all of this and you've got too much paperwork to do, think about the ramifications. Choose your time wisely.
And maybe pay your accountant to handle it for the no more than $2,500.
That's a great point, Marty. Yes.
Yeah. That's when you should be leaning on these experts. I know we're applying for it, and it looks like, what are they telling us, Vince? $1,000, $1,500 maybe?
Yeah, it looks like we got $1,500 maybe for us to go through the process.
So we think it's worth it. Vince and I don't have time for that. We've got plenty of other things to work on.
Okay, in a similar vein as that one, do you know if you can apply for both types of loans under the CARES Act, or do you have to choose one?
No, it's another good question. So you can do both loans, but you cannot be granted both of them at the same time. So basically whatever, the Emergency Disaster Loan Act is a larger pool right now in loans. And you can use some of your PPP, the Paycheck Protection Plan, within that. But it's kind of like you'll get one or the other. You can go through this process. You can try to get both, but the funds will be, it's a zero-sum game in the total relief that you will get. So if your relief is 100%, some of that may come out of the disaster loan, some of that may come out of CARES, but they will not do any double dipping here. And also, just Emily, on that, we had a question too that came to me about personal guarantees. And it sounds like if you're getting a loan for the economic disaster that's under $200,000, you will not have to have a personal guarantee. Anything over that $200,000 may require a personal guarantee. So again, information.
It's a big change from what we said before. That's a big deal. Lay that out.
So again, for that disaster loan relief, if you're not looking to get up to $2 million, but you're looking for something around 100 or 200,000, it seems to us that there is no personal guarantee required for anything under $200,000 in that loan.
This thing is moving rapidly. I spoke with the president of my bank. I've been speaking to him every day. My daughter works for JP Morgan in Connecticut. She was on a nationwide call. They're still figuring it out. I believe JP Morgan, if they're not the biggest bank, they're one of the biggest banks. So this thing is, it's got a lot of moving parts, and I just think it'd be a big mistake for you not to investigate it to some degree. Another question, Emily?
Sure. This is a combination question. It's from Ernest and Chris. With one person in the truck policy, how do you handle people that either do not have a driver's license or can't drive company trucks because of insurance restrictions? Do you try to work with that employee? Do you lay them off for now? What are you doing to handle that?
Yeah, that is a really tough one. I got asked that yesterday, Emily, and I didn't really even know how to respond to that. I didn't think about that. Locally here, if you have crew cab trucks, the health department is allowing 2 people in the truck, 1 in the front, 1 in the back. So if you've got crew cab trucks, you're good. Don't put them in the back of the truck and hide them back there. Good Lord, please. I don't know what to tell you if they don't have a license. You may have to see if someone can drive them around. I mean, it just presents a whole host of other problems. I get it. If you happen to have a van, if you put maybe 3 people in the van, I mean, there's so many challenges here, folks. When this is all done, we're all going to be able to reminisce and tell our grandchildren a story for the ages. But right now, it's going to require you to be as positive and resourceful as you possibly can. I don't have a great answer for that. And we are reimbursing our people for gas that are driving. We're paying them the IRS mileage rate, which is amounted to $6 or $10 a day. They're not going that far for us anyway. Other question?
Sure. Let me find the next one. This one's from our friend Phil Allen. How are you handling concerned clients? Have you had to address questions since your crew started working again this week?
That's funny. So one of the things we talked about in the first part of the webinar was to communicate. I have performed over 75 phone calls in the last 3 days. I've got about another 100 to go. I've had 1 negative call. That's the only call I've had that was negative, that I talked with a person. He was very upset that we were working. He said he's disappointed in me and our whole company. It was very hard to listen to him. I tried to reason with him. And to be honest with you, I really wanted to tell him off, but this is old Marty. Young Marty would have told him off and regretted it the next day. So I figure he's probably dealing with a lot too, and I gave him the benefit of the doubt. We just continued to tell the truth. We continued to communicate. We told them we have the legal right to be out there. And I also made him aware of something my wife said to me. She said, you have a lot of clients who probably seen their lawns cut and tended to, and their beds tended to, brings them a tremendous amount of emotional satisfaction. Not to mention the number of your clients that are elderly and can't do the work, or your clients that are physicians or attorneys or accountants that are at work all day trying to help someone else keep their business together. It's not just a one-sided thing. So I think keep your voice low, stay calm, be reasonable, continue to send your clients the email communication so they can read it, and then be proactive and talk to people. Strike first. Don't let them jump to conclusions. Give them a phone call, tell them what you're doing, tell them how you're concerned about being safety, and stay positive and thank them for their understanding. Like I said, only 1 out of 75 has gone poorly. Jim, anything you want to add there?
Nope, right on.
Okay, so this next one is from Jessica. What are you doing as far as finding safety gear like masks when they are nearly impossible to find right now?
Emily, at Grunder, we were pretty fortunate that we had ordered a bunch of safety masks from Site One several months ago during the winter when we restocked. So we're good to go there. I have not checked with Site One. I know Site One is listening with us today. Maybe we can find out if they have any of those. I'm not sure what to tell you. That is a major issue for a lot of companies. We'll see if Site One has any, and we'll get back to you on that. I don't know what else to tell you on that one. That's a tough one.
Okay, Next question is from Josh. He says, Marty, I appreciate your leadership. We followed your guidance and leadership and temporarily stopped service operations. Can you share what made your decision to continue business safely and go back to work, assuming you are now operating and completing jobs?
Well, number one, we got an official notice from CISA, which deemed our work essential. The local health department also deemed our work essential and did a public relations campaign so that the public knew if you saw landscapers out, it would be okay. We are demonstrating an overpreponderance of caution on what we're doing. So I'm not worried about it. I feel good. I slept well last night. I know that our people are out today. I can see what they're doing, and I feel good about it. And we're just making the best we can out of a very tough situation. Grass needs cut now in Southwest Ohio. Roses need cut back. Grasses need cut back. There's a lot of plant material that needs tended to, and we need to get pre-emergence down so we don't have an absolute mess. So that's what we're doing. Jim, anything? Vince, I leave anything out?
No, I think the NALP declaration goes a long way. And again, it's just a good thing to have in your back pocket, like you said, Marty, and be ready to talk about and share. But that ordinance should give people that were on the fence a lot of confidence to go back to work.
Yeah, and I want to stress at Grunder, we're only doing maintenance. There's no projects that we're doing. In Ohio, that's not deemed essential, and we can't do that stuff. Do we have some patios and stuff that are off the beaten path that maybe we could get away with installing? We probably could. I'm just not interested in doing that. I've worked hard 36 years at building a reputation, and I don't want to damage it, but I am going to do what I'm legally allowed to do, and we're going to do it safely. The health department is not going to complain about the work of Grunder and how we were doing it. There's no way.
Marty, similar to that question, Charles wants to know, are you able to keep your construction department busy doing maintenance, or are they staying at home right now?
The construction department, because we're behind on maintenance right now, we've got them swung over in the maintenance department. So far we're okay there.
Okay. Next question is from Levi. When you decided to shut down, were you worried about losing employees who you put on unemployment to competitors who were still working?
Say that again, Emily?
When you shut down your operations, were you worried about losing employees who you laid off to competitors that were still working?
We were not worried about that. We did lose one of our very good team leaders who, I don't know the circumstances of it. We'll try to talk to him later. We did lose one of them. So I like being honest when we do these things. Not happy about that at all. He's a fine young man that did a great job. I don't know, the reasons for him going someplace else. He said he went to work for a company that was working and we weren't working. So that hurts. I still think we made the right decision. We're trying to, it's different state by state. Everybody's got to do what they feel is best for them. And I'm not here to judge. Now that we have an absolute stone cold legal reason to be out doing maintenance, we're out doing that. So, that's something to worry about, but you hope that all the deposits you've made into their emotional bank account and how well you've treated them and how well you treat them through this would cause them to want to stay around. That's a tough thing.
Okay, next questions. Jake and Ben both were asking similar questions. If you have work and you are allowed to work in your state, but you have team members who don't want to leave the house or are afraid of coming to work, how do you handle that? What's the proper response?
Vince, you want to handle that one?
Yeah, I'd say that, first, you've got to respect what everybody's going through right now personally. So again, as Marty said, there should be no judgment for people that, want to go on unemployment or not want to come back to work. It just has to be communicated that that's, their choice, and you absolutely respect their choice, but we're going to stay the course and we've got business to do, so we're going to get it done. So again, that doesn't mean that you're going to hold feelings or hold things against people, but the work has got to get done whether people are there or not if you're operating. So that's a choice they have to make, and you've got to continue to operate as a business because you're looking out for not just one family, but 50 families. So you've got to continue to stay the course if you're operating. And if one person, chooses to not work, that's okay. And you understand that, but the show goes on.
Well said. Emily, want to do a couple more?
Yes, I think let's do two more. This one is from Gary. Do you consider mulching and edging as maintenance and an essential job under this order, or is that not considered essential right now?
Yeah, that's tough, Gary. Our interpretation here locally, and again, this is Ohio. If you've been watching the news, our governor's been on the forefront of this, and we have a lot of social pressure. So around here, we believe we can get away with edging, but we're not going to put down any mulch. We think we're asking for trouble here, but you got to be careful. It depends on what your state by state and how clear it is and what kind of social pressure you're getting. Another question, Emily?
I think we will end with this one. So this is from Stephen. He's based in Pennsylvania and they have a shelter in place order. They are deemed essential business. They have about 15 employees. What could happen if one of their team members does test positive for the virus? He's worried that they would end up being closed longer if that were to happen than if they had chosen to stay closed to begin with. Their clients are fine with them working on their properties. He's just worried about the health of his team.
Well, God love you, Stephen, for worrying about the health of your team. You'll never be criticized for that. Vince, that's somewhat of a legal question. Do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, I guess my initial thought is, you don't know what's going to happen, so you want to have some contingencies in place, but some of this you just have to put in place once it actually happens. So again, I appreciate the question. You can play, what if or what if this happens all day long, but there are actual protocols that you have to follow as a part of the DOL for this that, again, we can link to as a result of this webinar. But, they'll have to go into a quarantine, as Jim said, which is an official term that means, could mean different things in different states. But your team might have to get tested for the virus. I mean, this could go down a lot of different ways for your team. It doesn't mean you have to shut down working. It just means that the person who was sick could not work or not be in contact with people. So again, there's specific guidelines the DOL is recommending, but it's very hard to say, what if will happen if anybody, does test positive on anyone's team.
And take the temperatures.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jim.
And this is the reason last week we talked about keeping people on crews and not mixing them, because if something like this would happen, the most you'll take down is one person or two other people, and you'll keep the rest of your team protected if something like that would happen. And so
and
consider that, right?
And the safety protocols of taking the temperatures, all that stuff. So, well, Emily, you want me to wrap it up?
Yeah, I think we are good to go.
Okay, I saw there's some more questions here, like Jim had some questions about the CARES Act and stuff. We will do our best to answer all of these questions with a wrap up in a text form. Let me just say a couple things, folks. Here's what I heard today on the webinar, the observer in me. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Be a leader. You've got to get your work done, but you got to be safe. Number two, talk to your banker. Look at this note and see what you can do. Number three, you can still make sales now. Mr. Cali told us of, excuse me, our client in Colorado that sold a $150,000 job. Fight through this. Be a winner. Your organization is going to come out of this either stronger or weaker. It's your choice. You're not going to be able to maintain this. So you've got to be a leader. You've got to get out front. Your people are looking to you right now for inspiration. You are being watched. And again, like I said before, no one has faced this before. This is all new territory. So how you react to it is how you're going to end up winning in the end. And I want to close by telling you a funny story, because I think it's very important that you laugh. Every morning at 8 a.m. for a half hour to an hour, myself and the 3 members of the leadership team on Grunder Landscaping, we have a call and we talk about how we're responding to this. What adjustments do we need to make? What came up? So yesterday, at the end of the call, Dalton, our director of design build, one of our fine young leaders, Seth, our general manager, said, Dalton, go ahead and share the phone call you got. So I'm going to end with something funny. The fine folks at Steel have given us a robotic mower for us to do some testing and provide them feedback with. The machine is incredible. It's a cool little machine. It's provided a lot of enjoyment for our team, and it's doing a great job on our front lawn at Grunder. His nickname is Scotty. Dalton got a call from the emergency line on Saturday that he returned, and the guy said, one of your people left a piece of equipment running in the front yard, and it's going all over the place, and somebody's going to steal it. Dalton thought it was me maybe punking him. It wasn't. The call was real. The guy was real, thought that was really cool and wanted to know where he could go buy one. So in the midst of all this, we found some humor. Ladies and gentlemen, there's humor, all right? And there's work to be done. You've got to be a leader. Your organization will come out of this stronger or weaker. It's your choice. On behalf of the Grow Group, Emily Lindley, Vince Torchia, and Jim Cali, this is Marty Grunder saying so long, everybody.
Thank you, guys.